Marcus stood in the grand hall of the alien queen's palace, the air thick with tension. His diplomatic mission had started off with high hopes, but quickly turned into a nightmare. The queen of the alien empire, an imposing figure of regal beauty and cold authority, had made her decision. The room was silent, save for the occasional hum of the alien technology that powered the vast chamber. The queen's gaze was sharp, almost piercing, as she looked down at him from her throne. Her appearance was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen before. Her skin shimmered with an iridescent glow, and her eyes, dark and deep, seemed to hold the wisdom of centuries. She was a being of immense power, and Marcus could feel the weight of her presence pressing against him, making it difficult to breathe. He had come here to negotiate peace, to establish a treaty between Earth and her empire, but in his attempt to win her favor, he had made a grave mistake. During his speech, he had mentioned the Queen's ancestors, unaware that the term he used was deeply offensive to her. His words, though innocent in his mind, had ignited a spark of fury in the Queen. She had made her decision quickly, without hesitation. The alien attendants, silent and efficient, had moved to seize him, their hands strong as they gripped his arms. Marcus had never felt more powerless. His crew, watching from the sidelines, could do nothing but stand in helpless silence. The Queen's voice rang out across the room, cold and final. "This human has insulted me, and for that he will die." Marcus's heart raced. His mind scrambled to find a way out, but there was no escape. He had heard of the Queen's ruthless nature, but to face it firsthand was another thing entirely. His entire life had been spent navigating the complexities of diplomacy, negotiating peace between nations, and now it all seemed meaningless. He had angered a being who held the power of life and death over him. As the guards prepared to take him away, Marcus cast a glance toward his fellow humans. His crew, all trained professionals, looked on with pity. There was nothing they could do. They were at the mercy of the Queen, and she had made her decision. But just as the guards moved to drag him toward the execution chamber, the Queen raised her hand. The room fell into an eerie silence. Marcus could feel the weight of her gaze on him, and he instinctively straightened his posture, as if trying to present some shred of dignity in the face of his inevitable demise. "Stop!" she commanded, her voice laced with an unmistakable authority. The guards hesitated, unsure if they had heard her correctly. The Queen's eyes locked onto Marcus once again, and for a long moment there was only silence. Then she spoke again, her voice softer this time, but still commanding. "I will spare your life." Marcus blinked, confused. His heart pounded in his chest. "What?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. He had been prepared to die, but now he wasn't sure what to believe. The Queen's lips curled into a slight smile, but there was no warmth in it. "You have been spared, but not out of kindness," she said. "You will face a test. If you survive, you will earn your life. If not, your death will be swift." Marcus's mind raced. A test? What kind of test? He had no idea what the Queen meant, but the look in her eyes told him that whatever it was, it would not be easy. He was led away by the guards, who didn't speak a word. The hallways of the palace were dimly lit, their walls adorned with strange alien symbols that Marcus couldn't even begin to understand. The air was thick with a scent he couldn't place, something metallic and sharp, like the inside of a machine. Finally, they arrived at a large chamber, and Marcus was pushed forward. The door behind him closed with a heavy thud, leaving him alone in the room. It was a grand arena, unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. The walls were made of some kind of alien material that shimmered with an unnatural glow. The floor was covered in sand, and in the center of the arena stood several towering alien figures, each one clearly not of the same species as the Queen. They were massive, with strange muscular builds and dark, emotionless eyes that seemed to study him as he stood there. A sudden noise interrupted Marcus's thoughts. The Queen's voice echoed through the arena, booming from unseen speakers. "This is your test, human," she announced. "Defeat my champions and you will live. Fail and your life will be forfeit." Marcus's stomach twisted in fear. The alien champions were massive, terrifying creatures, each one more imposing than the last. One was covered in thick, scaled armor, while another was lithe and agile, its body covered in glistening, spiny plates. The third was a hulking brute, towering over the others with a monstrous frame. He had no weapons. His only defense was his wits and the strength he had trained for in his years as a soldier and diplomat. But what could he do against such powerful opponents? His mind raced, but there was no time to think. The Queen's voice cut through his thoughts again. "Begin." Without warning, the first champion lunged at him. Marcus barely had time to react as the creature's enormous fist swung toward him. He ducked just in time, feeling the rush of air as the blow missed by inches. He scrambled to his feet, his heart hammering in his chest, and sprinted toward the edge of the arena. The other two champions followed quickly behind, each one moving with terrifying speed. Marcus's training kicked in. He had been in dangerous situations before, but nothing like this. He had to survive. The first champion came at him again, but this time Marcus was ready. He sidestepped the attack and grabbed the champion's arm, using its own momentum to flip it over his shoulder and into the sand. The crowd of alien spectators roared with excitement, but Marcus didn't have time to celebrate. The second champion was already closing in. He had no choice but to fight, and fight with everything he had. The battle raged on, Marcus evading and countering his attackers with precision. His muscles screamed in pain, but he refused to give in. Every move he made was calculated, every step taken with purpose. The arena felt like a blur as he faced one opponent after another, the sweat pouring down his face and his body aching from the exertion. At last he stood victorious, his chest heaving with exhaustion as the last of the champions crumpled to the ground. The audience fell silent. The Queen's gaze remained fixed on him, as cold and unreadable as ever. "You have passed the first test, human," the Queen's voice echoed through the arena. "But this is only the beginning. You have earned your life for now, but what happens next is up to you." Marcus, breathless and covered in the sweat of his battle, looked up at her, unsure of what would come next. He had survived, but now he had to face whatever challenge the Queen had in store for him. His fate was far from sealed, and as he looked up at the Queen, he knew that this strange and dangerous game had only just begun. Marcus stood in the middle of the arena, his breath coming in quick, ragged gasps. His body ached from the brutal combat, every muscle screaming with exhaustion. Sweat poured down his face, mixing with the dirt and blood from the fight. The arena was eerily quiet, the only sound the echo of his own labored breathing. The alien spectators who had once jeered and shouted now watched in stunned silence. The last of the champions had fallen. The massive alien, with its spiny plates and jagged limbs, lay motionless on the ground, defeated. Marcus had done it. Against all odds, he had survived. But just as he allowed himself a brief moment of relief, a deep, unsettling voice rang out through the arena. "Do not think this is over," the Queen's voice echoed, cold and commanding. "You may have won this battle, but the war is far from finished." Marcus's heart sank. His mind had been focused on surviving the tests, but now he realized that the Queen's words held a deeper meaning. This wasn't just about physical strength. It was about something far more dangerous, a test of his willpower, of his ability to survive in a world where everything was stacked against him. The doors to the arena creaked open, and a group of alien soldiers marched in, their dark eyes cold and calculating. They were not the same champions he had fought before. These soldiers were different, more skilled, more dangerous. They moved with precision, their weapons gleaming in the dim light. Marcus knew this was not a test of strength alone. It was a test of his mind, of his ability to think under pressure. The soldiers surrounded him, closing in from all sides. Marcus's pulse quickened. His thoughts raced as he scanned the arena, searching for any possible escape route. But there was none. The high walls of the arena seemed impenetrable, and the soldiers had effectively trapped him in the center. One of the soldiers stepped forward, a tall, menacing figure with a mask that obscured most of its face. The soldier's voice was cold and mechanical as it addressed him. "You are a mere human. You have no place here, in this arena, in this empire. Yet you stand before us, alive. Tell me, human, what makes you think you can survive the next trial?" Marcus swallowed hard, his throat dry. He had no answer. He couldn't explain how he had survived the first trial, how he had fought off 3 of the Queen's fiercest warriors. It had all happened in the blink of an eye, driven by pure instinct and adrenaline. But now as the soldiers closed in, he had to find a way to stay alive. He had no choice. The soldier with the mask raised a weapon, a long, glowing spear that hummed with energy. It pointed directly at Marcus's chest, and the air seemed to vibrate with tension. Marcus instinctively took a step back, his hands raised in a defensive posture. "I don't want to fight," he said, his voice steady despite the fear bubbling inside him. "I came here to negotiate peace, to offer my people a chance at survival. I never meant to cause harm." The soldier's laughter was cold and mocking. "Peace? You think you can offer peace in this empire of warriors? You are weak, human, and you will fall just as the others before you have." The soldier lunged forward with lightning speed, and Marcus barely had time to react. He ducked as the spear slashed through the air, missing him by inches. He scrambled backward, his heart pounding in his chest. The soldier advanced again, its weapon aimed at him with deadly precision. Marcus knew he couldn't keep dodging forever. He had to act. With no weapons at his disposal, he relied on his wits and agility. As the soldier struck again, Marcus sidestepped and grabbed hold of a nearby piece of debris, an old, jagged piece of metal from a previous battle. It wasn't much, but it was something. The soldier's weapon clanged against the metal, sending a shock wave of energy through the air. Marcus felt the vibrations in his arms, but he held on. With a grunt, he swung the metal shard at the soldier's head, catching it off guard. The soldier staggered back, momentarily stunned. Marcus seized the opportunity. He lunged forward, using his momentum to push the soldier to the ground. The soldier's spear clattered to the floor, its energy humming down into nothing. Marcus quickly snatched it up, holding it in his hands with a mixture of uncertainty and resolve. He didn't know how to use it, but at this moment, it was all he had. Before he could fully gather his bearings, another soldier rushed at him, its eyes burning with fury. Marcus barely had time to block the attack with the spear, the force of the blow sending him stumbling backward. He swung the spear in desperation, but the soldier was too fast. With a swift move, the soldier knocked a weapon from his hands, sending it flying across the arena. Marcus fell to the ground, but he quickly rolled to his feet, his body screaming with fatigue. He had no more energy left to fight, but he couldn't give up now. He had come too far. He had survived the first test, but this second trial was proving to be much harder than he had imagined. The soldiers closed in on him, their weapons raised. Marcus's mind raced. He couldn't win this fight through brute force. He had to outsmart them. His eyes darted around the arena, searching for any advantage he could use. Then he spotted something. An overhead platform high above the arena floor. It was narrow and precarious, but it could offer him a chance to gain the upper hand. With a burst of energy, Marcus sprinted toward the platform, his legs burning with the effort. The soldiers followed, but they were slower, their heavy armor weighing them down. As Marcus reached the edge of the platform, he vaulted up, grabbing hold of the metal railing just in time to pull himself over. The soldiers reached the platform, their eyes filled with rage. They brandished their weapons, preparing to strike, but Marcus had the advantage now. From his higher vantage point, he had a better view of the arena and the soldiers' movements. He knew he couldn't afford to make a mistake. He waited, crouching low as the soldiers closed in. They had no idea what he was planning, and that was his advantage. As one of the soldiers raised its weapon to strike, Marcus launched himself forward, grabbing a metal pipe that jutted out from the side of the platform. With a single swing, he knocked the soldier off balance, sending it tumbling to the arena floor below. The remaining soldiers hesitated for a moment, thrown off by the unexpected attack. Marcus didn't waste the opportunity. He jumped down from the platform, landing in a roll to absorb the impact. He quickly snatched up one of the fallen weapons and turned to face his attackers. This time, he was ready. The battle continued, but now Marcus was more focused. Every movement was deliberate, every decision made with a clear purpose. He dodged, blocked, and countered with precision, each strike building on the last. Slowly but surely, he began to turn the tide of the battle in his favor, but just as it seemed like he might emerge victorious, a new threat appeared. From the shadows, a massive creature stepped forward, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. It was unlike anything Marcus had seen before, a hulking beast with thick, armored skin and razor-sharp claws. The creature roared, its voice deafening in the silence of the arena. Marcus's heart sank. This was no ordinary soldier. This was a monster, a creature designed for one purpose: to kill. He had faced many challenges in his life, but none like this. As the creature charged toward him, Marcus knew that this test would be his hardest yet. His survival, his future, everything was on the line. The arena was silent after the monstrous creature had appeared, its massive form towering over the other soldiers, a perfect rumbling sound that echoed through the entire chamber. Marcus's chest tightened, and his instincts screamed at him to run. But there was no escape. The creature was fast, and with every step it took, the floor seemed to shake beneath him. The soldiers, who had been relentless in their pursuit, now backed away from the creature, almost as if they feared it. It was clear that they recognized the monster for what it was, a creature bred for battle, designed to crush any opponent in its path. The beast's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, its massive claws scraping against the floor like knives being drawn from sheaths. Marcus's grip on the weapon he had taken from the soldiers tightened. He had fought through impossible odds before, but this was different. This wasn't just a test of strength or survival. This was a test of everything he had learned throughout his life, of every decision he had ever made. The beast before him was unlike anything he had ever faced. It charged at him without warning, its jaws snapping open, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Marcus barely had time to react as the creature lunged, its claws slashing through the air. He ducked and rolled to the side, barely avoiding the attack. He scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding in his chest. The creature was relentless. It moved with an unnatural speed, its every motion filled with an overwhelming, almost mindless rage. Marcus had no choice but to keep moving, to stay one step ahead of it. He couldn't fight this thing head-on. He would have to outsmart it, just as he had done with the soldiers before. He noticed a small raised platform at the far end of the arena. It wasn't much, but it was a chance. With the beast closing in, Marcus sprinted toward it, praying that the creature wouldn't catch him. His legs burned as he pushed himself harder, the sound of the beast's claws scraping against the stone floor growing louder behind him. Just as he reached the platform, he heard the creature's roar, deafening and filled with fury. It was too close. Marcus had no choice but to leap. He pushed off the ground with every ounce of strength he had left, grabbing the edge of the platform just as the creature's claws slashed the air beneath him. For a moment Marcus hung there, his fingers gripping the metal of the platform, his chest heaving with exhaustion. The creature's growl echoed up at him, and he could feel its eyes on him, filled with hatred. He knew he couldn't stay hanging there forever. The beast would find a way to reach him. With one final push, Marcus pulled himself up onto the platform. He turned quickly, searching for something to use as a weapon, but there was nothing within reach. His mind raced. He needed a plan. Fast. He spotted a row of metallic barrels lined up against the far wall of the arena. They were cylindrical, about the size of a small crate, and their surface was covered in strange alien symbols. There was no time to figure out what they were, but Marcus knew they had to be important. With the creature still growling below, Marcus moved carefully toward the barrels, keeping his eyes on the beast. He could feel the heat of its breath on the floor below. It was getting closer. He reached the barrels and tried to lift one, but it was heavier than he expected. He strained, his muscles aching, but he managed to drag it toward the edge of the platform. The creature's eyes locked onto him, and it charged again, its massive form crashing into the side of the arena with earth-shaking force. Marcus's heart raced as he lifted the barrel higher, hoping that it would be enough. With a deep breath, he hurled the barrel down at the creature. It hit the floor with a loud crash, and for a moment there was silence. The creature paused, its glowing eyes flicking to the object that had fallen in front of it. Marcus didn't wait for the creature to recover. He jumped down from the platform, landing with a roll to absorb the impact. The beast was distracted, and this was his chance. He grabbed the barrel and swung it at the creature with all his strength. The impact of the metal hitting the creature's side sent it stumbling back. The creature howled in pain, but Marcus didn't give it a chance to recover. He moved quickly, using the barrel as a shield and striking it again. The creature's movements became more erratic, its rage only fueling its attacks. For every strike Marcus delivered, the creature seemed to grow angrier. It was starting to lose control, its strikes more wild and desperate, but Marcus knew this wouldn't last forever. He had to end this, and fast. He backed away slowly, keeping his eyes locked on the creature. There was a narrow gap near the back of the arena, and it was his only chance. If he could make it there, he might be able to escape, or at least get to a better vantage point. Marcus turned and ran, the creature right on his heels. Its claws scraped against the floor, its growls shaking the air around him. He could feel its presence behind him, its massive shadow looming over him, but Marcus didn't slow down.
He couldn't. Not now.
As he reached the gap, he dove into it, sliding into the narrow space just as the creature lunged. Its claws scraped against the wall behind him, but Marcus was already up, his back against the cold stone. For a moment, the creature seemed to lose interest. It prowled around the gap, its eyes searching, but Marcus held his breath, trying to remain still. He couldn't risk being discovered. Not yet. The creature circled for a few more moments before letting out a frustrated roar. It moved away, leaving Marcus alone in the shadows. Marcus exhaled slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. He had survived. But he knew this wasn't over. The creature was still out there, and there were more challenges ahead. As he emerged from the gap, Marcus's eyes met the Queen's. She was standing at the edge of the arena, her expression unreadable. She hadn't moved during the entire battle. She had simply watched. Marcus felt a strange chill run down his spine as he approached her. He had survived, but he had no idea why she had spared him, why she had allowed him to fight. The Queen's voice echoed through the arena, cold and emotionless. "You have proven yourself worthy, human," she said, "but your survival means more than just a test of strength. It is a test of something deeper." Marcus swallowed hard, unsure of what she meant. "What do you want from me?" The Queen's eyes narrowed, her gaze piercing. "I want you to help me break the chains of my legacy," she said quietly, almost as if speaking to herself. "My reign has been plagued by a curse that binds me to this empire. But you," she paused, her voice firm once more, "you may be the key to my freedom." Marcus stared at her, confused. He had come here expecting a diplomatic mission, but now everything had changed. He was no longer a simple human envoy. He was something else entirely, a pawn in the Queen's dangerous game. "I don't understand," Marcus said. "Why me?" The Queen looked at him with something that almost resembled pity, though her expression was still unreadable. "Because you are different, human. You have the will to survive, to defy the odds. That is what I need." Marcus felt his mind racing. He had survived the Queen's trials, but now he was faced with a far more difficult choice, one that would alter the course of his life forever. Marcus stood in the dimly lit chamber facing the Queen. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. She had revealed a part of herself that few had ever seen, a side of her that was vulnerable, not just the powerful ruler who commanded armies and ruled an empire. She had told him about the curse that bound her, about her desperate need for freedom, and now she was asking for his help. "I don't know if I can help you," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the confusion swirling in his mind. "You've put me through all these trials. You've tested my strength, my will, but this is different. You want me to help you break a curse that has lasted for centuries?" The Queen's gaze never wavered. She stood tall and proud, the weight of her position as the ruler of an empire still evident in the way she carried herself. Yet there was something more in her eyes now, a flicker of uncertainty. It was brief, but it was there. "You don't have to understand everything," she replied, her voice calm but firm. "All that matters is whether you're willing to help me or not. You've proven yourself worthy of my trust. Now I ask you to prove that you can make a choice that will change both our fates." Marcus looked at her, his mind racing. He had never been in a position like this before. He had always prided himself on his ability to think clearly under pressure, to make the right decision when it mattered most. But now, as he stood before the Queen, the decision was not just about survival. It was about something much bigger. "You're asking me to join you, to help you break free from your curse," Marcus said slowly. "But what happens after that? What do you expect from me once this is all over?" The Queen's eyes softened, and for the first time since their meeting she looked less like a ruler and more like a person, someone who had been carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders for far too long. "I don't know what will happen after that," she admitted. "I only know that I cannot do this alone. The curse has held me in its grip for too long. It controls every part of my life. And if I remain under its power, the empire will eventually fall. We both know that." Marcus felt a surge of empathy, and for a moment he found himself looking at the Queen not as an alien ruler, but as a person trapped by forces beyond her control. She was not invincible, not all-powerful. She had been shaped by circumstances, by the empire she ruled, just as much as he had been shaped by the world he came from. "And if I help you," Marcus said, his voice growing more certain, "what do I get in return?" The Queen's gaze hardened once again, her posture straightening as she prepared for the next words. "I can offer you a place by my side. You will become my consort, my partner. Together we will rule the galaxy, and together we will break the chains of the past. You will have a position of power, wealth, and influence beyond anything your world can offer." Marcus took a deep breath, absorbing her words. Power. Wealth. He had been a diplomat, a man of words and strategy, but this was something else. This was a chance to change the course of history, to shape the future in a way he had never imagined. "But at what cost? You ask me to join you in a rebellion against your own people," Marcus said, his voice quiet but intense. "If I help you, it won't just change your life. It will change everything." "There will be no going back. You can't promise me that we'll win."
"You can't promise me that I won't lose everything in the process." The Queen didn't flinch.
"No, I cannot promise you anything. All I can promise is that we will fight, and that we will fight together." Marcus's mind whirled with possibilities. He had always known that life was full of risks, but this was different. This was a gamble on a scale he had never considered. To help the Queen break free from her curse would mean joining her in her rebellion, and that rebellion would likely bring war. He thought of his crew, his people back on Earth. He had come to this galaxy with a mission of peace. But now, that mission seemed so far away. This was no longer about diplomacy. It was about survival. It was about something bigger. The fate of an entire empire, an entire galaxy, rested on his next decision. The queen was watching him closely, her gaze unwavering. She was waiting for him to make his choice. Marcus felt the weight of her stare, the responsibility of her trust. It was more than just a personal decision now. This was about the future of not just Earth, but countless other worlds that would be affected by whatever happened next. "I can't make this decision lightly," Marcus said, his voice filled with determination. "But I know this. I'm not afraid to fight for what's right. If this curse is really controlling you, then it's something that needs to end. I'll help you. I'll fight with you. But I need to know that this will lead to something better. That it will lead to a future where we can build something stronger than the empire you currently rule." The queen's eyes softened again, a brief flicker of gratitude passing through them. "I promise you, Marcus. Together, we can break the chains of the past. Together, we can build a future that is free from the curse that has controlled me for so long." For a long moment, Marcus said nothing. His mind continued to race, but his decision had been made. He would fight. He would stand with the queen, not just as her consort, but as her partner in the fight for freedom. The path ahead would not be easy. It would be filled with battles, with sacrifices, with moments of doubt, but it was the only path that made sense. "I'm with you," Marcus said, his voice steady and clear. "Let's break this curse together." The queen nodded, a slight smile touching her lips. "Then we begin. There is no turning back now." Marcus felt a surge of resolve. There was no turning back. He had crossed a line, and now he was committed. There would be no more diplomacy, no more talking. The time for action had come. As he looked at the queen, he saw something different in her eyes. It wasn't just the ruler of an empire. It wasn't just the person who had put him through these trials. It was someone who was ready to fight for her freedom. Someone who was ready to make the ultimate sacrifice if it meant breaking the chains of her past. Together, they would rise. Together, they would fight. And together, they would shape the future.